cannot breathe. This is the strangest tasting coffee of my life. Okay. Hey friends, what's up? I'm Allie and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about my most surprising and best reads of 2019. Now when I talk about most surprising, I mean books that maybe I went into expecting something and then what it really was blew me away, or something that like genuinely like I went in not knowing and in the end it was so much better. These are just books that just took me by surprise. So one of the first books that I ended up reading for the year was Warrior of the Wild, and this took me mostly by surprise because a lot of people at the time were talking about how this is a Viking book, and well, it's not. It might be slightly inspired by Vikings, but probably not though. Basically, this is about a girl who ends up failing her trials, and then she is given an impossible task. These impossible tasks are given to them basically so they'll die out in the wilderness. So she goes out into the wilderness, and her task is to bring back the head of a god. She is very intimidated by his powers, but she also comes across some other people who have been exiled, kind of deal. There's so much more going on. There is her exploring this world, her finding out more about like the god that they follow, like all these other things, and she's also getting to know these people that have also been exiled. So it took me by surprise just because, one, it wasn't really what it said it was going to be, but I also freaking loved it. It was so good. It just took me by surprise because I wasn't expecting, especially a fantasy standalone, getting a god's head. Like, I was just like, this could be weird. But I was really excited about it, and though it wasn't what I was expecting, I still really enjoyed it. The next one is probably The Girl Who Drank the Moon. I don't really know why this took me by surprise. It's a middle grade fantasy, and I guess because I don't really ever rate middle grade fantasy like a full 5-star. It's normally lacking something for me. I was just so amazed by how intricate this world was and how smoothly the timeline, not the timelines, how smoothly each character's stories kind of weaved together. And I love the characters. It had such a great balance of humor and darkness. It's about this village that takes a newborn baby like once a year or something and puts them out in the woods and basically gives them up as a sacrifice. Well, this old witch comes across one of the babies, and the baby is kind of suffering, so she lets the baby drink the moon. So she ends up raising this girl because she ended up giving her way too much of the moon, and now this girl has this powerful magic, so the witch raises her. Now, you're learning as this girl is growing up, she is trying to balance the magical world, town, and why they feel this sacrifice is needed, but you're also dealing with a woman who has been placed inside of basically a jail cell, and it is her expressing her own form of magic, and it is just so good. I was so subscribed, oh my god. I was so surprised by just how much I enjoyed it and how much it impacted me, and I cried at the end. Like, it was so good. Wicked Saints, and I think this is mostly surprising just because it's so polarizing here on BookTube. Basically, you either really hate it or really love it, and I definitely fell into the really loved it. Like, it had been such a long time since I had been that invested in a book, and I love the characters. It's very reminiscent, I think, of like the Grisha world, just because it's kind of like this Russian world. I love the dark magic. I love the light versus dark, where you have her, she is kind of last surviving like magic person of her people, and she's going up against like these blood magic people. I was just so surprised by how much I ended up enjoying this, especially because so many people had not talked highly of it. So I was kind of a little worried going into it, but I ended up loving it, and so I will be of the unpopular opinion that I loved it, apparently. Next we have Always Never Yours, and I mostly didn't think I was gonna like this. It has something to do with a girl who gets the role of Juliet, and she is playing against her best friend's boyfriend. He is Romeo, and basically she ends up really liking one of the other guys on the set. She enlists the help of some other guy in order to learn more about this guy and date him. She's very forward about the fact that she likes dating around. She's very forward just being very unapologetically her, and I loved it. I thought it was so good. I was not expecting necessarily, because a lot of times when girls are that way in YA contemporaries, they come off kind of bitchy and snotty, and like, it's just kind of hard to read at times. But it felt very natural, and it was just fun, and I loved the progression of the romance, and I thought it was just so fun. I loved it. It was so good. Next I have one that really took me by surprise, and that's Poet X, mostly because this is a story told through poetry. I am not a fan of modern poetry whatsoever, and it was a double whammy because it's also about religion, and I don't really like to read about that stuff. So I was really surprised that I felt so connected to this character, and I felt so involved in her life, even though I was just hearing her story through these poems, and it wasn't technically like a full story, but it was, and it was depicted so well. And I was just so surprised by how much I liked it. Her parents are extremely strict, and she wants to write poetry, and she wants to express the fact that, you know, maybe there is no God because her family is very religious and they're not very nice. So it deals with a lot of questioning of that, and I just thought it was just so powerful. Next one also took me by surprise, mostly because it is a romance, an adult romance, and it is Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating, and basically I thought I would enjoy this. I knew going into it I would probably enjoy it just because I like Christina Lauren's writing. I like the premise of it. Is basically that they're fake dating. I'm a sucker for fake dating. Well, they're not even fake dating. They are trying to help each other date, and they are constantly going on double dates with other people. There's such a chemistry between the two of them, and she is just like crazy and erratic, and he's just kind of very like chill, low-key, so you don't really expect them to go well together, but they do. There were some tropes in this that I really normally don't like, and I found that I didn't mind them, I guess because I enjoyed the rest of the story so much. But I remember highlighting parts in this story, and I was like when I first started it, and I was like, oh my god, you have got to be kidding me, like this is already so dumb, and I ended up loving it. Like, I ate it up. It was just so good. It was like what I needed right in that moment. Then we have Never Have I Ever. Now, this is one I went into kind of expecting that I would like, and then feeling disappointed, and then being surprised by my feelings about it. It's basically this woman holds like a book club, and then a new woman shows up in town, and it is basically gets everyone drunk, and she's like, let's play Never Have I Ever, and she's trying to get the secrets out from these people, and the woman who is hosting the book club realizes that this woman knows her darkest secret. Ends up being blackmailed by this woman, and it is a ride, I tell you. It is definitely more of a thriller, and what I was disappointed by is how unrealistic the whole thing was. Like, in my mind I was like, this is so unrealistic. Like, normally I get into these thrillers, and if it seems too far-fetched, I'm normally not into it, but I could not stop. Like, I was so into it. I was also disappointed because there is a lot of fat phobia in this, so fair warning there. But I was just like, at first I was like, okay, this is going to be like a really interesting mystery thriller, and then some bunch of weird stuff was happening, and I was like, I don't believe it, but I'm going to continue on. And I ended up loving it. I thought it was so good. I ate it up. It was just such a thrilling story that I couldn't stop. So I was surprised by just how much I enjoyed the unrealisticness of it. I also have Cersei, and I think what surprised me mostly about this, so this is a mythology retelling kind of deal of like Cersei's story, and how she's been like part god, part mortal, so she doesn't really fit in. But she is exiled to this island, and it's about like her trials on this island, and meeting people, and who visits her, and her life there, and the hardships that she goes through, and the things that she recounts on, and things like that. And I mostly was surprised because this is an extremely slow-paced book, and I know a lot of people really did not like it for that, but I think I enjoyed it more because of it, because you're dealing with this immortal being, and all she has is time, so it only makes sense that this story seems like it takes a lot longer than it does. And also, it was just such a deep dive into like her thoughts of like what it's like to make these mistakes and then have to live forever with mistakes, and also what it means to love as a mortal, like view immortals. Like, I don't know, like it needed to be slow paced, and the depictions were gorgeous and beautiful, and they were real. Some of them were hard hitting, and I just love this so much more than I was expecting to. Especially because starting out I was like, oh man, this is slow, I don't know. And it did take me a while to read it, but it was so good. Next we have Paper Girls. I feel like I have to mention at least one graphic novel in here. This one, it wasn't necessarily that I like loved these. I mean, I enjoyed them greatly, but I had read these up to the second volume, and I hated Paper Girls before. I was like, I'm done with this. It's too confusing. I would describe it to you right now, but I honestly don't know how. It's basically these paper girls get sucked into different time zones and they're trying to find their way back, and there's people hunting them down, and it's just bizarre. But I read the first 2 volumes and I really was not feeling it. Really was not. So I read the 3rd, 4th, and the 5th for my graphic novels nominees video, and I liked them so much. I really enjoyed them. I was surprised by how enthusiastic I became after hating that series, so it shows that there is proof that things can get better, I guess. Okay, next we have The Girl in Red, and I was surprised by this because I've read Christina Henry in the past. I read Alice, and Alice was disturbing to say the least. Alice was extremely gory just for the sake of being gory. There was a lot of crazy things happening and a lot of dark and twisted things happening, mostly for shock value. They weren't necessarily there for the storyline. It was a lot of shock value, a lot of detailed description of mutilation and things like that, and a lot of it was just gross for the sake of being gross. So I was a little nervous moving forward. She does these really dark fairy tale retellings, which I guess in a sense is how they kind of are to begin with. So she kind of plays on that, but she really takes it up a notch. So I was quite nervous going into The Girl in Red. This is a dystopian. It follows a girl who is biracial, bisexual, and she is also missing part of her leg, but it is a dystopian world, and you are going in between the present, where she is surviving in this world and just beating down people. She's like, you might be the wolf, but I'm the hunter kind of deal. And then also the past as to how the world has become this way. So I was really surprised because Christina Henry's writing has grown so much. There was the perfect balance of kind of violence and tenderness. Things made sense, and it was such a good story. It was really like, we got down to the last 2 chapters and I was like, oh my god, what's gonna happen? Like, we're down to the last 2, what is happening? So I really enjoyed it. I think it's a really great kind of traditional dystopian novel. I wouldn't say that it's anything far-reaching. I was getting a lot of Black Mirror vibes as I was reading it, especially it was like a kind of a mix, but the one episode that's in black and white on Black Mirror kept popping into my head. I think it would also be really great for fans of Station 11. I thought it did the mix really well for that. So, yeah, there's that. Heartstopper, again, I have to mention, this is probably my favorite graphic novel of the year. It was just so good. This is about boys, and the one boy has come out as gay a few years back, and everyone at school kind of bullied him. They're kind of over it now. He has been meeting up with a guy and hooking up with this guy who isn't ready to come out, but he also doesn't treat him very well. So he ends up befriending one of the guys on the rugby team, and they become really close, and at least the first volume is about their friendship growing, and just, it is so sweet and so sincere, and I loved seeing the little moments that they had together, and it's so cute, and you can tell the tension is building. This was just, I was just, oh god, it's so cute. Now let's move on to my best reads of the year. Now I tend to like to narrow this down to top 3, but I think I have 4 for you today. I'm just going to quickly mention Thunderhead, Dark Dawn, Wicked King. These are all series that I continued, series that I love, so I'm not going to really dwell on those, as you've probably seen them in other people's favorites of the year, but those are just ones that I feel like need to be mentioned because they were my favorites. First, I feel like I have to talk about Turn of the Key. I feel like this might be on a lot of other people's favorites as well, but this was definitely my favorite mystery thriller of the year. I just thought this was so well done, especially the audiobook, because there's a part where the narrator is making like the sound effects that she is hearing, and it's that creak, creak, that just got me. I had like chills. I was like looking throughout my house. I was like, is someone here? Is someone in here right now? But this is so good. It is a Turn of the Screw retelling, which I really enjoy Turn of the Screw, so I was pretty excited. We're getting a lot of Turn of the Screw things, reimaginings within the next year. Very odd. This was so good. It's about this woman who takes on this nanny position to take care of these girls who are a bit odd. You realize that pretty quickly. They're a bit odd, and it is in a smart house. So I was really interested to see how the smart house thing was going to affect things, because Turn of the Screw takes place in like 1800s. So I was really interested to see how the smart house thing was going to affect it, because it's supposed to be kind of paranormally like. But you already know right off the bat that she is been charged for the murder of one of these kids. This is you finding out why she has taken this job, the secrets that she has, what has happened, because she's like, I didn't kill the girl, but let me tell you my side of the story. And it was just so good. I love the format of it because she's telling it through a letter, and you don't even realize, like, once it starts, you don't necessarily realize that you're reading the letter. And I loved the ending. The ending was so good. It was so weird because my coworker and I were talking about it. We were reading it at the same time, and I was like, this is my theory, and she was like, well, this is my theory, and we never once thought that both our theories would be right. I ended up being surprised by the ending. I thought it was so good, so well done. Next, I would say Roses and Rot. This was also a surprising read, but it was also one of my favorites of the read, mostly because I am a dumbass and did not read the summary. So let me tell you, my ass was so confused when I started this, and I got to the part where we start mentioning fairies, and I was like, I did not know this was a fairy book. So if I would have just read the back, I would have known that. But I didn't, so it was even more exciting for me because I was like, oh, fairies have appeared. So this is about a woman and her sister who decide to, it's like this arts getaway, and they are able to get in, and basically you find out that they hold this kind of getaway in order to find like kind of the best artistic person of the best, and they hire them out to the fae, into the fairy world. So this is about our main character who is a writer, and basically they find out that it is essentially a competition, and she writes like dark fairy tales, and then her sister is a dancer, and it ends up coming down to basically they realize that they are in competition with each other. Definitely love that it was mostly about like our world getting these glimpses of fairy, and I don't know, it was such a unique way of telling a fairy story. Maybe it's because I've only read YA fairy that's mainly romance heavy, but this was just such a unique and dark kind of story, and I loved it. Kat Howard just has this beautiful way of writing as well. It's very reminiscent of Neil Gaiman. It's dark, it's melancholy, it's just, it's a little twisted, but at the same time it's beautiful. It's beautiful, and it's poetic, and it's descriptive, and it's eerie. So I loved this so much. It's a very atmospheric book. I loved it. I loved it way more than I thought it was going to. Kat Howard has easily just snuck up into my top favorite authors, so I'm so excited. I think I read pretty much everything by her now, so I need her to get to work. Next we have The Last True Poets of the Sea. So this is my top YA read of the year, and I'm so surprised by this. I kind of just picked this up on a whim. I was looking for October arcs to read, and this was available, so I was like, oh, you know, I'll go ahead and read this, and I pretty much read it in one sitting. It was so good. Again, very poetic. This is about a girl who has been kind of doing her own thing. She's a party girl, and she has been kind of sleeping around, and her parents realize that there's some issues to be had with her because her brother tries to commit suicide, and she kind of just doesn't care. She's like hitting on the doctor while her brother is just waking up from trying to kill himself. So her parents send her away to live with her uncle at kind of her grandparents' old house, and basically her family has dated back to this town since its origin. Her grandma and grandpa were in this shipwreck, and they were the only ones to survive and created this town. Mystery around because this ship has never been found, and her and her brother have always said they were going to find the ship, and basically she makes it kind of a deal to herself and her brother that she is going to go find this ship, but along the way she's also kind of figuring things out for herself, She is making genuine friends for like the first time ever. She's kind of dealing with her emotions, with her brother, with herself, with where she wants to be, and also just trying to get her life together. I was really taken back by just how impactful I felt this story was, especially because it can be silly at times. It was a silly story sometimes. I was a little bit annoyed because there is a love triangle set up, and I felt it could have been handled quickly and more better, and it was just trying to take up too much of the plot. But other than that, it was just so good. It wasn't enough to like take it away from me. Like I was just like can we deal with this and move on? But it was so good. I love the ending. You can kind of interpret it as you want. You can either decide if the ending is more magical, if it's more realistic, if it's just her. Like, you get to decide the meaning of the ending, and I just loved this. It was just like a very great coming of age kind of story, and just so good. It deals a lot with like mental illnesses, and it deals with anxiety and depression. She is also bi. It's just, it's so good. I think I only have one more, and it was by far, just by far my favorite read of the year. Again, another one that surprised me because this is a more historical book, and while I like historical, I was not expecting to like a historical women's fiction book just this much. But that is City of Girls. I have compared this to the Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo several times. I just think it's very reminiscent, looking back on this woman's life basically and how she has gotten to where she is. But this one is more about, a woman receives a letter, and it's from this girl asking how this woman knew her dad and what her dad meant to her. So she's very like, you know, what was going on between you and my dad. So this looks back, she writes back the letter, and it is her basically outlining her life as a young adult. She decides that she's going to go live with her aunt, and her aunt runs a playhouse, and so she gets sucked into like the very theatrical parts of New York. She is taken in by like these showgirls. She's very passionate about this world, and she's learning more about it, and she's basically being raised in this, and they teach her about self-expression, and they teach her to be free. It's very sexually freeing. She does whatever she wants. She's like, you know, I have needs, and I'm gonna take care of them. So it was very interesting to learn like how her life grew in this way, the hardships that she goes through, and along the way you're trying to figure out who is the dad? Who is the dad, and how is she connected to the dad? Like, you're trying to figure it out, and it was connected in like the least likely way I would have ever thought, and I thought it was so well done. I loved the ending. I loved that it was just such a sincere kind of bond. I'm getting cold chills thinking about it, but it was so good. It was so well written. I loved just how freeing this book felt, how it was just very sincere in emotions, how it talked about how women can be friends and they can be strong. It was very realistic of like friendships that fall apart. It was just so good. Oh my god, I cannot talk to you guys enough about this book. Those Friends were my most surprising and best reads of 2019. I would say it was a pretty successful reading year, but later this week you'll be seeing my most disappointing, shittiest reads, so you guys be the deciding factor on that. Hope you guys have liked this video. Let me know if you read any of these and agree with any of these. Let me know if you're interested in any of these. I would love to hear your thoughts and feelings. Let me know some of your favorite books. I don't know, just leave something. Hope you guys have liked this video. Don't forget to subscribe to see future videos from me. Thanks for watching, and see you next time. Bye! I feel like there's a lipstick on my teeth this whole time.